Welcome to this week's edition of Outdoors Online, a weekly webcast produced by the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. I'm your host, Tom Jensen. My guest this week is Mike Johnson. Mike is the head waterfowl biologist at Game and Fish. Mike, you and your crews are finishing up your winter waterfowl survey.
Right, yeah, it's officially called the Midwinter Waterfowl Inventory, and it's a national survey of waterfowl that's really the oldest waterfowl survey in existence. It's been going on since the 1930s. And before we had breeding ground surveys for ducks, it was really the only measure we had of the status of waterfowl in North America. So they started this winter inventory of how many ducks and geese we have and where they were located, and it's gone on every year since then.
We generally relate waterfowl to fall and spring, of course. Why do you do this in the dead of winter?
Well, as I said, this is a nationwide survey, and it's really not that big a deal for North Dakota. We always have a few birds here. They stay mallards and Canada geese especially, stay as far north as there's some open water and some food, at least some do. As you get further south, where the rest of the birds winter, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, we spend a few hours flying a survey here and a few man hours people visiting below dams and things across the state. But you get into Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, they'll spend a week flying their areas down there, counting all the reservoirs and rivers and coastal marshes. It's a pretty big deal when you get further south.
So the data that you collect on these then is used by more than North Dakota. It's all up and down the flyway.
Right, it's a nationwide status report annually of where ducks and geese are and how many there are. We don't use it so much for population management except for a few species. In the south, it's used more for habitat assessment, where the ducks and geese are spending the time in the winter, what are the important habitats, where should management and acquisition activities take place. And in order for their data to be important, we need to know how many birds are remaining in the north. And some years it's substantial numbers, and other years, depending on the severity of the weather, it's much fewer.
Just a shot in the dark here, but I'm guessing you don't have too hard a time finding the birds and where they are. They're pretty restricted as to open water.
Right, basically we always fly the Missouri River. Ever since the dam's been built, there's been open water below the dam, and almost every year there's at least a few birds there. And we look for other open water areas in the state. The confluence of the Missouri River and Yellowstone is one area. And usually in the tail races of other dams, there's a little piece of open water or something, and there'll be a few birds there, but generally nothing significant.
Of course, Nelson Lake.
Right, Nelson Lake, where the power plant heats the water, is a pretty good area. In some years, there's lots of birds there.
It's been cold so far this year. How did your surveys turn out with
well, it was cold doing the surveys.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The department's plane, it has some heat, but it's a little cool out there. Surveys went well. Quite a few birds in the state this year. Again, large type Canada geese and mallards are the hardy birds that spend their time in, at least some spend their time in the north. And so the surveys went well. We had I believe the third highest count of Canada geese on record on the Missouri River, and about the seventh highest tally of mallards in the state's history. And our survey goes back to 1952. So I think the top 5 numbers of Canada geese have all been since like 2007. So we've been seeing increasing numbers of birds staying north longer.
Does that have anything to do with the lack of snow?
Well, of course it does. They have to have food that are high energy demands, and when temperatures are this cold, so they can actually subsist without water for quite a while, but they have to have feed at least periodically, or they can't subsist up here. So once the snow gets deep enough and the food, whether it be residual corn or wheat in the fields, once that gets covered up with snow, they have to get out of here or they can't make it. Now, an exception to that is mallards. We have a bunch of mallards that winter in a tail race, and quite a few of those we know are subsisting on smelt that come through the turbines of the power plant and get ground up coming through there. And a lot of those mallards, believe it or not, are actually eating fish over winter.
I'll be darned. Puddling ducks.
Puddle ducks, right. Of course, we always also have a bunch of common mergansers and common goldeneyes that spend the winter below the dam, again subsisting on those smelt that come through the turbines. And if you were to go up there and take a look real close, you'd often find a few other rare species. You know, there's been a long-tailed duck up there almost every year for the last few years, and the birders enjoy going up there and taking a look and seeing not only what rare species might be there, but also, as you say, quite a few eagles that are there. And of course, those eagles are subsisting on waterfowl, which are either die of natural causes or whatever during the winter.
Waterfowl hunters can start gearing up for the spring snow goose conservation season. That's coming up fairly shortly.
Yeah, we just got done with waterfowl hunting about New Year's here. In another few weeks, we'll be after, at least be able to be after light geese.
Chances are we probably won't see any for a while.
Yeah, we always open that season early, about mid-February, so that if we should happen to have a real early break in the winter and birds start drifting north, that hunters can take advantage of them. But yeah, when they get here in March or April, the season will be open and hunters can start getting after snow geese and Ross's geese.
All right, Mike, thanks.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, there is a goose hunting season opening in the next month. The special Spring Light Goose Conservation Season opens on February 21st. The season is intended to reduce the population of snow geese in order to conserve their Arctic nesting grounds. The season is for snow and blue geese and Ross's geese only. And even though it'll be a while before light geese start showing up in North Dakota, the season is open from February 21st until May 17th. The rules and regulations are much different than regular fall seasons, so make sure you familiarize yourself with the laws before attempting to hunt the spring snow goose conservation season. You can find out more at the Game and Fish website at gf.nd.gov. For Mike Johnson and the rest of the staff here at North Dakota Game and Fish, thanks for joining us for Outdoors Online. We'll see you again next week.